So we're here with Chirstian Gossett, the creator of the Red Star. Thank you so much for meeting with us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's just start off with the big question everyone wants to know. When or if are we going to get some more Red Star?
Fortunately, IDW has just put out the first Red Star release in a while. It's the Red Star Treasury Edition. It's a beautiful big book. It's got some great issues that are very hard to get. It collects an 18-page story that is basically a one-shot, an amazing one-shot called Rapid Fire. And that was published in Geek Magazine last year, but it's not available anywhere else. Run Mikita Run, a 40-page annual is in there right in the middle. And then there's also a really cool little 4-page story that shows the American side of the Red Star universe called Know Your Enemy. That's a cool little 4-page story, originally done for the comic for Hero Initiative, Jim McLaughlin's Hero Initiative. The 4-page story is named Know Your Enemy, and it was originally done for Jim McLaughlin's Hero Initiative. Very, very proud to help out Jim anytime we can with that. And it ends up with another really cool Red Star story that escapes me at this time, because there's just so much in that book, I can't even contain it.
So are you kind of done with the Red Star, or are you hoping to get it back, new stories coming? Because it's such a big universe, it's such a big story to tell, and unfortunately, it's been a while.
It has been a while. And, it's such a big, wonderful universe. It never leaves my mind. A lot of the writing has gone on that continues the story. It's just not released. Running an independent comic is really, really arduous and long, as anyone who's running an indie can tell you. And so it's been great to come to IDW and have them basically republish our old stuff. And as far as the future of the Red Star is concerned, I'm working with Ashley Miller and Zach Stentz, who wrote a couple little movies called Thor and X-Men First Class. Really, really great guys. Really love the Red Star, and we're working on a television version of the Red Star. So that's what's really exciting to me. That'll be pretty cool.
One of the things I remember from reading the Red Star, because it's been 14 years or so since it
started, yeah,
is that the Red Star was one of the first fully digitally produced comics. I mean, I remember reading about how there was no real original art. It was done on this crazy tablet thing, and it's amazing how well it stands up, because here we are 14 years later, and that's the industry standard now.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. We did a lot of we built CG environments, and we were the first to do that. If you looked at Diamond Previews, and I always, anytime I mention Red Star's Diamond Previews cover, I always thank Jim Valentino for giving it to me. And whenever you look at that Diamond Previews in June of 2000, well, it was April of 2000 for June releases. If you look at that book before the Red Star had ever come out, and then you look at Diamond Previews now, you can see all over the book the influence of the Red Star.
It was one of those moments. It's like there was before the Red Star, and then there's after the Red Star, because it was the first book to really legitimize digital art. Before that, it was very clunky and pixelated, and the Red Star was gorgeous.
Thank you very much. We did a year and a half of trial and error to get that look. So we worked very hard, and we're very, very proud of it to this day. It is nice to see how it holds up, and it was nice even in the Treasury Edition that IDW has just released, which is a large format edition. That's the stuff printed up larger, and it still looks great.
So let's move on to something you've been working on lately. You're moving into a different medium. You are working on Star Trek, now, Axanar?
Star Trek Axanar.
Axanar.
Yeah, Axanar is what we like to call an independent Trek production. It's made by professionals, and it is an independent production. So we've got Oscar-winning, two Academy Award winners on this. So it's hard to call it a fan film when you have 2 Academy Award winners on a show. A while ago, my dear friend and someone I've worked for, Sir Richard Taylor, he hates it when they call him Sir, but he respects it because the Queen hath granted him this knighthood. My dear Sir Richard said to me, "Chirstian, have you thought about directing?" And so when someone like that recommends something like that to you, you have to listen. So I've given that a shot lately, and I've really enjoyed it. My first film won an award from the Local 600, which is the International Cinematography Guild, and was screened all over the world as a result. The second film is going to festivals now, and the third film is Prelude to Axanar, which is basically, I love Trek, and I love prime timeline Trek. I love original Trek. So this story is 20 years before the time of Kirk and Spock, but it's in that their same universe. So it's really, really fun to retro design story worlds. I worked on Tales of the Jedi. I was one of the first artists to work on the Old Republic for Dark Horse and Lucasfilm licensing, and so I did a lot of my work there is still being used as canon. So it's really wonderful to do the same thing with Star Trek.
Yeah, you are one of the few people, you and like J.J. Abrams, who are able to actually bridge that gap with the Star Trek, Star Wars animosity. I mean, little known fact, you were the person who came up with the first design for the double-ended lightsaber.
Yes, that's right. I was in my early 20s, so I was very, very excited, and I had a lot of energy and a lot of time. So I just threw myself 1,000% into the designs for the Old Republic. And it made perfect sense to me, since the Jedi are a metaphor for samurai, that their weapons in the Old Republic would be less standardized and more individualized and more handcrafted and different. So you'd have double blades, you'd have a lightsaber blade on the end of a polearm, you'd have a curved handle, you'd have lots of really, really interesting variety that, as time goes on, always goes away, and in favor of standardization. So yeah, it was really a blast to do that.
So what have you done to sort of retro imagine Star Trek in this manner?
The design approach we're taking is based on Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry was a bomber pilot in World War II. It's an amazing thing that you don't hear a lot about, actually. The man was a pilot of a B-17, flew 80 plus combat missions. So when you know that about him, you know that this was a captain who saw his friends die in battle, and yet his ship carried him home safely every time. And then you connect that to Kirk, and you can see the influence of that life. Star Trek is in many ways a fantasy memoir of Gene Roddenberry's adventures in World War II, if you, for lack of a better term. So that's been, and since we are 20 years before Star Wars, Star Trek, 20 years before the original series, our approach is, you know what? It's not. How do you create the 23rd century in a way that looks like it could have become the original series? We go back. So the original series is our template, and all of Roddenberry's decisions, and we're stepping back from there, just like I did in Star Wars. It's the same approach, except for, and again, just like that one was based on Lucas's influences, this one is based on Roddenberry's influences. I think it's really important to at least pay some serious attention to the core creator, as David Gerrold, the great David Gerrold, who's script consulting with us, the author of, the writer of Trouble with Tribbles, and several other episodes, and knew Gene a long time. As he says to us, Gene was the blind man holding the lantern. And that's a great, great way to think of anybody who is kind of the creative lead. Orson Welles, Gene Roddenberry, George Lucas, they have a vision, and they don't quite know where they're leading us, but they're going, and we're following them because they have that vision. And it's been, when you do that, when you work from the influences of the core creator, amazing things can happen.
Well, so you have put together a extended trailer. It's what, like 9 minutes?
We have the first thing we wanted to do, Alec Peters, the executive producer of Axanar, wanted to produce some Star Trek. He really wants to produce science fiction, and he loves Trek most of all. So he said, how do I become a producer? How do I get to produce the next Star Trek show? And I said, well, hypothetically, you'd have to produce something. And I said, you know, from this position, you could come up with your own IP, intellectual property, and do it from there. He's like, nah, I want to do Star Trek. I said, all right, we'll make Star Trek. And so he jumped into the fan film community, found out what he could from them, and befriended a lot of them and all the wonderful stuff that they're doing, and found that a lot of them are ex-professionals on Star Trek, or people who have been on the show in one way or another, behind the camera, in front of the camera. And then he talked to me a lot, and I told him what he would need to do in order to basically, the way you become a producer of television is you produce television, you produce filmed content. So we wrote up the script, and I'm sorry, the original question was?
Just what you've produced so far.
Right. So I said to him, a very important proposal is to do short pieces. Learn what you're doing. And that's true for a comic book creator, it's true for anybody. Do short pieces first. Don't jump into and overcommit yourself to some epic that's going to really, really bleed your resources without any kind of input from your audience. Find out who you are as a creator. Find out what you can do, and put out something that is within your means, like a short film. So we did a couple of trailers, released those, but really those were cut from footage that we shot for something called Prelude to Axanar, which is the first fictional military documentary of the Star Trek universe. We based it on the World at War, the incredible, definitive BBC documentary of World War II. We based it on an episode of MASH called The Interview, where famous episode, and I said, the Band of Brothers also was an influence. Talk to these veterans of this battle as a way to introduce our audience to the battle itself, and the battle itself being the later story we want to tell. So it so far has worked out great. We screened it for the first time for cast and crew and donors at last night at the Horton Plaza downtown at Gaslamp, and it went really, really well. Really grateful. It was great to have the donors be able to see the fruit of their donation, and it was we go from there. So that's what we have right now. Is we have our first episode, our first release, and we got to learn a lot about what we need to do to continue.
So if people who are curious, they're watching this, they want to see it, where could they find out more?
The first place you go is if you're on, just Google Star Trek Axanar. You can go to Facebook and just Google Axanar, Star Trek Axanar, and you will be able to begin to follow us. Alec is a master of brand management, so you can go to Facebook, you can go to Twitter, you can go to our website at our website. Google knows what the website is, and you'll find it. Kickstarter.com. Enter Axanar, and you will get our new Kickstarter, which was just launched during the show. It's our third morning of our second Kickstarter, and we're already at $80,000. So thanks again to all of our donors.
Have you gotten any feedback, questions, interest from Star Trek and from Universal Paramount?
We are more interested in television. So CBS is who would be of interest to us, and as they have the rights to the television franchise. And I'm not at liberty to say anything really about that, other than we really, really encourage them to think about doing another Star Trek show and in the prime timeline.
All right, well, all the best to you. Thank you so much for meeting with us, and look forward to seeing more.
Thank you very much. It's great to talk to you.